evening and welcome to Insight. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay. In a week's time, that's the 6th of March, India's iconic warship INS Viraat will end its journey. It has spent 30 years in the Indian Navy, 27 years in the Royal British Navy, and will be decommissioned in a grand ceremony at the Naval Dockyard in Mumbai. The motto of INS Viraat, Jalamev Yasya Balmev Tasya, which means one who controls the sea is all-powerful, reflects the glorious role that she has discharged and played to further India's maritime goals. The crest of Viraat shows an eagle which symbolizes air power, and the 5 arrows held in the talons of the eagle depict the ship's versatile weapon capability. The ship holds the Guinness Book of World Record for being the longest-serving warship across the world. And despite all this, there are no takers for the beast that Viraat is. No state coming forward to build a memorial.
She is the last British-built ship serving in Indian Navy. She is the last aircraft carrier which has served so long in any navy. The ship was built and commissioned in 1959 and was inducted in Royal Navy as HMS Arms and decommissioned in 1984. Later in 1987, the ship was again commissioned as INS Viraat and served for last 30 glorious years.
It is a very emotional time for the ship, and it is at the same time, that time for all of us who are here on the ship to host all the officers and sailors who have served earlier on the ship, to have them relive their memories for their nostalgia and give a decent and a befitting farewell for the service which the ship has done for our Navy and our nation.
Mr. Chadda, the question here comes at what will be the fate of INS Viraat after 6th March? There are a lot of emotions attached to it. If we talk about it, this was an aircraft carrier. This warship served Royal Navy, now serving Indian Navy. Sir, how do you think the kind of emotional attachment the people has, and what shall be the fate of this Viraat?
See, one is the thing of the personal emotional attachment, which all people who have served on the ship have a very high emotional connect with the ship, because the ship is a huge ship. It is a ship which has done a lot of service, and all who have become, like they say, once a Virati, always a Virati. That is the personal attachment which will be there. However, as far as the disposal of the ship after the decommissioning is considered, it can't be only on personal emotional attachments. That call has to be taken by the Ministry of Defence based on various factors as to the utility of the ship after that, and to have a detailed study, and based on that to decide what will be the disposal, whether it will be a museum ship, whether it will be a ship which will be used for display purposes, or it will be a ship which will be disposed as a target or in scrap.
This issue is being examined in New Delhi by the Ministry of Defence, Naval Headquarters and the state governments who have offered to undertake such a project. And based on their deliberations, we will get to know very soon. We are expecting that we will get the decision very soon in the near future as to what will be done with the ship post her decommissioning.
Now here the big question arises, what will be the fate of INS Viraat after decommissioning? Will INS Viraat be made to meet the fate of INS Vikrant, that is going in scrap? Or the deliberations and negotiation at ministry level with Andhra Pradesh government will come true? Will the INS Viraat will go in scrap or be transformed into museum or hotel? That is still undetermined. With Vijay Kalpesh, Siddhant in Mumbai for NewsX.
Joining us this evening, retired Commodore Uday Bhaskar, who's a defense analyst. Retired Lieutenant General Shankar Prasad, and Amit Malviya, spokesperson of the BJP, also retired Commodore G.J. Singh, all of them defense experts. Good evening, everyone. Commodore Bhaskar, there's a high possibility that INS Viraat will head to the scrapyard after being decommissioned. Your first reactions, your first thoughts, sir?
My first thoughts are really, I would say, a fairly heightened amount of nostalgia, tinged with sadness, because on March 6th, the ship, the carrier, would be decommissioned, and for the last time, the national flag and the ensign would be lowered. And for any sailor, when you have a major warship, particularly a carrier like Viraat, I think it is a moment of sadness. Sadness, as I said, because you're bidding goodbye there was a faint sliver that perhaps, unlike the Viraat, so I beg your pardon, unlike the Vikrant, that there would be some kind of an initiative to convert this either into a naval museum ship or perhaps into something that could be utilized by the entertainment or the hospitality industry. But as of now, I think these remain relatively elusive, mainly because the state governments involved are not able to find the necessary resources. But I think in retrospect, for any sailor, especially those who served on the Viraat, this was a glorious ship. It has a very distinctive pedigree. The keel for this ship, if you remember, was laid in World War II towards the very end. Then it was mothballed and brought back into service by the Royal Navy. Saw action in the Falklands in 1982, and subsequently we acquired this ship. I distinctly remember 1986-87 when Admiral Tehliani, the late Admiral Tehliani, the Chief of Naval Staff, and this ship was received. I think it was a glorious moment for the Indian Navy. We had 2 carriers at that time, and it was very, very special. So I would say sadness, yes, and lots of nostalgia, and a little sliver of hope that maybe some kind of an initiative could be taken to its logical end so that it doesn't go to the scrapyard. Palki?
Yes, sir. General Prasad, some say it will cost too much, others say they cannot find a fitting location to set up a museum or a hotel as the ideas have been floated. Would you say these are mere excuses?
Well, you see, the problem is we have never been able to, besides what the Commodore just said, and I completely support his view, but besides that, we have never really cared for tourism into India. Look at the countries in Southeast Asia, whether it is Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, they are developing the tourism barely on constructed golf courses. And look at the kind of tourism and the economy that is generated out of that. We are a very ancient civilization. We are a very ancient culture with huge historical background. We've got fantastic temples. We've got fantastic historical sites. If we can develop tourism around this ship, which is a beautiful, fantastic piece of art, I'm calling it a piece of art, and we can either construct it into a hotel or an amusement place or a place of recreation, and above everything else, motivate young people to come and see it and join the Navy. It is a place which we should be proud of. We cannot let this go into motorcycles like the earlier aircraft carrier went. That will be absolutely ridiculous. Here is a fantastic ship which the people, the young children must see, and we will develop tourism around it. We have got huge coastline. I do agree, and some people made a comment that the eastern seaboard is prone to cyclones. Well, we can do something about it. We can shift a little bit. We can put the aircraft carrier at a place where it is safe and can be fully utilized for purpose of tourism. You know, across the world, there are 170 ships converted into museum. If you look at Europe, if you look at some of the other countries, you will find that every country has so many ships converted into museums. Why is India not looking at it? Why are we only worried about selling it as scrap and converting them to motorcycles? It is a shame such a fantastic piece of art is going to be destroyed and for posterity to come and not see what an aircraft carrier looks like. I think it will be very negative on part of the state government and even on the part of the central government and Ministry of Defence to let it go to the scrap part. We must develop it and use it for tourism into India, and we must really cash on it. I have a feeling we will rake in so much more foreign exchange out of this than what perhaps we will spend to do it up.
Commodore Singh, we spoke about this earlier today. Why do you think INS Viraat should be preserved for the future generations of India and the world?
Palki, first of all, let me endorse what General Shankar has said, that we are so proud of a culture, civilization, a country steeped into, civilization, and we boast about being a superpower, and yet we cannot make a memorial for our veterans on land. We are very proud of, only India Gate in Delhi, which is actually built by the British. Now we have a piece of art here, INS Viraat, which can be converted into a memorial, a symbol, because any institution, like for example, Indian Navy is a great service. It's a great institution. And any institution which does not have a symbol, which does not have a symbol of history, a memorial is like a tree, as I said, like a leaf, as I said earlier, who does not know which tree it belongs to. How will our posterity know as to where do we belong? You see, we have HMS Belfast in Britain, in River Thames, which has permanently moved. It is a Second World War ship which has participated in Second World War, and thereafter it was decommissioned in 1963. The government of Britain has very successfully converted into a trust and made it a museum come hotel, museum come, attraction for the tourists. We can do something similar. We have no dearth of money. What we lack is political will. You see, earlier also we have destroyed our link to the past. For example, INS Delhi, which was World War II ship, which had participated in famous sea battle and River Plate, on which even Hollywood made a movie. Thereafter, the same ship was a flagship in Indian Navy. It is the first flagship of the Indian Navy which participated in the liberation of Goa from the Portuguese. It participated in 65. It participated in 71, and yet we sent to the scrapyard. Similarly, Viraat, a very powerful ship in its days, bought in 61 war, received at Bombay with pomp and show by then the first Prime Minister of India. It was an iconic ship where everybody had, proud of it. It participated in 71 war. That ship was instrumental in liberating, breaking Pakistan in two, because it was in the east which blocked the sea route, sea lanes of Pakistani Navy into Chittagong, which was the main harbor. It disabled Chittagong and Chulna at that time, what we call Mongla these days. I mean, these are historical ships we are sending one after the other to the scrapyard, for dismantling, for cutting. It is most unfortunate. It does not behove of us as a nation, which is so proud of our veterans, which is proud of our Navy. And let me tell you, this is one ship which symbolizes post-independent India, unified country. The country was never like unified as it is today. And these ships are the symbols of independent India. They represent a Republic of India. They represent one India. And out here, our politicians whose mentality is totally landlocked and probably needs to be sensitized to the naval way of life, to the oceans, to the sea. They got to revise the decisions. They got to revise the thinking that they should be able to raise funds. They'll be able to make memorials. They are making memorials for everything else, but not for independent independent India symbol.
Let me take this question. You spoke about political will. Amit Malviya, someone pointed out earlier today that we are spending crores of rupees on a Shivaji memorial. A lot more money has been spent on the Bahujan Samaj memorials that we see in Uttar Pradesh. But we don't have money to build a memorial to a ship with as glorious a past as INS Viraat.
Palki, let me just say that those comparisons are quite unfortunate to start with, because irrespective of what happens in the political space, every country must protect its military history, and we have definitely failed to do that in a manner that's befitting of the armed forces, the Navy and the Air Force that we have. So if we recognize that fact, we will be able to move ahead and make some more definitive interventions as INS Viraat now gets decommissioned on next Monday. Let's look at the history of these warships that we've had. INS Vikrant was decommissioned in 1997. It continued as a museum till about 2004, and post that it got mired in several legal controversies. The matter went all the way up to the Supreme Court, but eventually the ship had to be scrapped in around 2014. So there is a history of a warship being scrapped. Now, as we stand, if Viraat is going to go and get decommissioned, Indian Navy will be left with just one warship. The other warship which is again called INS Vikrant, is under manufacturing and it will be ready for testing in waters in 2018, end of 2018. And the third warship is still on paper, and we are still trying to figure out what the size should be, what the volume should be, and so on and so forth. For Indian Navy, the plan is that we must have 3 such carriers, but unfortunately, come next Monday, we will be just left with 1. So if any government, any navy has to prioritize, its core priority lies in creating ships, warships that we need as per the requirement to defend our country. That is going to be the primary focus, of course, for any government and even for the navy. But let's come to the military history part of it, and let's look at the option of preserving Viraat as a memorial. I'm all for that. I understand the government is looking at it, and several chief ministers who are managing coastal states are, in discussion to do so. There are issues on the eastern coast. It's happened in the past. There have been issues with berthing because it's cyclone hit and so on and so forth. But yes, I do agree that solutions can be found out. The government is looking at it. But let's not miss the sight of the overall picture, because we believe that this must be created. Converting a warship into a memorial is definitely one way of doing and preserving military history, but is not the only way. We can have museums, we could have prototypes, we could have books and postage, and for this particular ship, grand book is being released, a postal stamp is being released, so a lot of that is being done. But can it be converted into memorial hotel? Will the cost work? Will the economics work? Is it going to be commercially viable? We have to see all of that, and I think the government is looking at it, and we should be patient and see how it plays out.
Commodore Bhaskar, do you agree that we may not be able to save the ship, but well, we are going to have a book about it, so that's going to keep the history. And do you think it's all a question of political will, sir?
Well, I would say that at the end of the day, it's definitely about political priorities, because we went through a similar kind of debate when the Vikrant was also being similarly decommissioned and the fate of the Vikrant was being decided. And again, it seemed for some time that the state government in Maharashtra perhaps would be able to get adequate support for converting it into a museum or into a hotel or entertainment, and the sense was that can it become self-sustaining? Because I agree with this point that it would not be fair on any state government to saddle them with recurring expenditure. So this is where some innovative kind of partnerships are required. There is a global model. I think some of my other panelists have pointed out to certain other symbols in other countries in the world where there has been a very productive partnership whereby the platform has been used. But if you don't mind, Palki, I want to raise, draw attention to a larger point about political priorities. Now, in the course of your remarks, you drew attention to the current Indian, shall we say, penchant among the political class for these larger-than-life statues. And we have one in Maharashtra when it comes to the Shivaji statue. Gujarat is having its own, shall we say, preferred statue. And we have in UP, where a large number of statues have been funded by the political party that was governing at one point in time. Now, this is where I think the need for having some kind of focus on military history, as opposed to what you might call as the priorities that the political class has in a way identified, needs both public debate and review. Now, I'm a sailor, so definitely I would say that there is a case, whether it is the Viraat or the Vikrant earlier, because aircraft carriers are very special ships. They are large ships. They have a certain history as far as the country's military history is concerned. Now, you could make the same case for the other two services also. So, I think we need a holistic kind of approach about military history per se, how it can be, in a way, exploited, maybe that's the wrong word, but harnessed, in terms of trying to infuse a certain amount of the sense of military history among the younger generation. And that needs, I would say, a more sustained kind of collective view at the political level, harmonization between the center and the state. Again, one of my panelists drew attention to the fact that we are soon going to celebrate 70 years of Indian independence in August 2017, and we are still going round and round in circles about an appropriate memorial for the Indian soldier who has laid down his life for flag and country. Now, like this, I think every state in India, every part of India has its own very rich military history. And today's younger generation hardly knows about it unless it is brought to them perhaps through the medium of cinema. Now, this is just one example. So, I think there is a larger case for the political class in India to deliberate objectively about how best we could preserve our very rich military history. And the Viraat is only, I would say, one such example of where, if there was a certain degree of innovative thinking, we could perhaps preserve this platform. But I don't want to make a black and white case and say that it must be preserved. And at the end of the day, we have to find ways in which it would become, as I said, self-sustaining. And that is where I think we need a certain degree of partnership with the private sector.
Right.
And whatever be the most successful models in other parts of the world. Palki?
Absolutely, sir. Commodore Singh, you wanted to make a point?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out to Mr. Amit Malviya that he has mentioned about books, he has mentioned about, other ways of maintaining history and teaching the posterity. But what I want to tell him is that when it comes to ships or the memorials like Viraat or Vikrant, or perhaps it should have been Anna's Daily, you see, when our present officers and sailors, they go to these ships which belong to that World War II era or the, till 1670s, they get the real view as to how the Indian Navy evolved. For example, you see, today's naval officer, or for that matter sailor, he does not know how the open bridge, the bridge of a ship is like a control room from where you control the whole ship, were open. They were not enclosed with air conditioning as today. They were open to weather. They were, open to hot, cold, and temperate weather and seasons of the year.
Right.
If it was raining or if there was a storm, the officer had to stand with a raincoat and do his duty, do his watch. So these kinds of, real-time, these situations can only be imagined on ships. When you see see such ships, when you see how our sailors lived, when the ships were steam ships, when the ships ran on, their engines were on coal and FFO, furnace fuel oil, and what kind of smell they used to emanate, and the hardships that they went through, and what kind of, gunnery, weaponry systems we had. So they serve as an education. They serve as an insight into how we have come to today's Navy.
Right.
So therefore, if you ask any veteran, any senior officer, a senior sailor today, the veteran, senior veteran, they will tell you that the Navy today is altogether different than what it was in those days, and
Absolutely.
therefore it is very essential to teach our children, to teach our this present generation of officers
Right.
and sailors as to how we have grown, how this country moved up from inception to this, let me put it as a young age, if we, see overall extended the period of Indian history.
Right.
You see, so these are the things which come out well. Otherwise, you can say the books and videos and films and, all kinds of electronic methods of teaching. I mean, they do not, they cannot replace what a textbook can. I mean,
Right.
still today, you learn better from a textbook,
Right,
from the
I'm-
written book.
I'm out of
that will
time.
guide you, when you visit a place memorial. Yeah.
Sure, I'm out of time. I know General Prasad, you wanted to make a point. Sorry, sir, I'm completely out of time
Come
here.
on.
Okay, 30 seconds.
I just want to say,
Sure.
we as Indians are very poor at recording history, and we are very poor at being proud of our history. This is national history, not only of the Navy. We must preserve it. We must find funds to do it. We must have a public-private partnership to do it. There are ways and means to find money. That's not a problem. But the point is, we are very poor recorders of history. We never can be proud of a great history and a great nation that we belong to. I think it's time that someone stood up and said, we have to preserve our
Sir.
history. We have to develop tourism. We have to develop our economy. Those are the issues that are larger issues than just the Navy and,
Yes, sir.
and the other issues that have been brought out.
can I get just a last word in?
I'm afraid we are out of time, but I think you've got a lot of food for thought, Amit Malviya, and we still have one more week. So we hope that everyone,
Well,
all the agencies
Palki,
together
very
can find
quickly, I completely agree with all that our veterans are saying, and I can tell them that I completely echo their sentiment, and we are looking at ways and means to preserve and develop and evolve military history, not just naval history, so that our generations can know about it, whether or not a ship should be made into a memorial or not, what's the best way of going about it. We must get all the inputs from people who really know about this stuff and can guide the government. We're all open and we want to know what ideas they have, and we'll see how best we can implement them.
Good to hear that. Amit Malviya, thanks very much. Commodore Singh, Commodore Uday Bhaskar and Lieutenant General Shankar Prasad, thanks very much for joining us here on Insight, and thank you for watching.